I got that note in my. Hey, wow! I had no idea there was a camera here. It's Sage and Sound Advice. I'm Jeff. Vic is off doing a session for God knows who. He's so busy, that guy. Anyway, enjoy this. This is pretty good stuff here. You're gonna learn a lot. Trust me. Sage and Sound Advice here. I'm Jeff. We got a very special interview, one-on-one, two-on-one again, with Pete Thorn, Canada's Pete Thorn, guitar master, and all things great. We love this guy. We hope you enjoy Pete Thorn on Sage and Sound Advice.
What's the first record you remember buying with your own money?
I still have it.
You still have it?
Yeah, it's Breakfast in America by Supertramp. And I think that's a solid first record.
On vinyl, was it?
On vinyl, I have it in a frame at home. I have that copy still, and I've still got to hang it up because I moved recently. But I've got that first album that I bought still. Yeah, I was pretty young. I was 10, I think, maybe 9, 10, something like that. Yeah.
I remember that being a solid option on the Columbia Record House.
Right.
Yeah.
In that year, when 10 for a penny.
Right.
10 for a penny.
It would have been that, Journey Escape, Foreigner 4, that was the one. I was just like, I want all of those.
Great Stu Ham joke.
Yeah.
I saw Stu Ham do a gig in LA a while ago. So I just got signed today. I signed a record deal today. I got signed to Columbia Records. It's a 10-album deal. You know what I'm going to say, right? You pay a penny and you get, that whole thing was really funny. But yeah, Breakfast in America. There was a kid that moved into my neighborhood that was a few years older than me, and his name was Bob. And he played keys really well, and he could play a little guitar. And when I think about it now, he was such a freak of nature, because I was 9 or 10 and he would be 13, something like that. But he had this massive record collection, massive vinyl collection, everything from Zappa to Van Morrison to The Who, big Beach Boys fan. So he had this, his Beach Boys collection was records that wide, just incredible. And he's the one that taught me my first chords on the guitar and taught me how to listen to music, actually sit down in a chair and put headphones on my head and say no. Because I was a little kid, and he was like, just sit there, don't move it, just sit and listen with the headphones on and read the liner notes, and he'd hand me the record, and he was kind enough to kind of get me listening.
Wow.
And introducing me to music. So
for a 13-year-old kid, that's pretty deep.
When I think about it now, he was really into the jam and all kinds of really cool stuff, and he could play keys, kind of like electric piano. He played really well, and he was super dialed into art and music. I should try and find him again, but he was a cool cat.
Now, being from Canada, I have a question. Knowing that Canadian radio has that deal where it has to be a certain percentage of Canadian artists.
CanCon, that's right. Yeah.
Did Canadian music influence you, or did you not delineate from American or English or?
No, big time. Some of that Canadian stuff is Canadian rock and roll is a big part of, Max Webster, Kim Mitchell. There was all these great bands like the Queen City Kids and, Toronto and all these bands that didn't really get down.
Totally.
Harlequin. And,
yeah.
The ones that people heard about were Loverboy, but
right.
there was a ton of music up in Canada going, rock and roll that was happening. Who else? Streetheart, Kenny Shields, he was a great,
I was on a plane with those guys and I had no idea who they were. It's so funny. And I was like, Streetheart. I was with Martin Short and I said, does he know Street? He did not, but Paul Schaefer did know of Streetheart. There's a whole world of rock and roll up in Canada that we don't know.
Yeah.
If you live in Detroit, if you live in Windsor...
Or Buffalo, maybe.
You would know, maybe.
You got the radio crossing over, that's right. I moved away in 90, so then there's a whole scene that happened after, but there's all kinds
ladies and
and they crossed over a bit, but bands like Tragically Hip, who was, could play 2 nights at any arena in Canada, hockey arena, one of the biggest bands in Canada, for sure, would come down and play House of Blues or something in LA, and it'd be mostly Canadians there. So that's fascinating to me that there was this whole, but that's anywhere. Because like I say, with most of the touring gigs I've done over the past 5 or 6 years, it's been Mylène Farmer, Michel Polnareff, who's a massive star in France that they just, adored in France. But outside of France or other French-speaking countries, Tyoshi Nagabuchi, it's also very, his music is very sort of, Japanese in its, but yet, you know, he's got things in common with artists like Springsteen or something, where he's kind of like the everyman, but for the Japanese culture, you know, where they just look to him as kind of like an inspiration or sort of a, you know, great sort of inspirational songwriter or something that rocks, and his energy and everything they love. So there's these artists in every country, and that to me is like, it's fascinating because there's all this music that you can discover. It's like to go to a country and play with an artist like that and realize that here's a song that came out in 1976 or something, and this whole crowd of people's been singing it, and they know all the words ever since then, and it feels a little like going to another planet.
Totally.
And becoming a fan of, like, because I'll become a fan when I get one of those tours of, even if the song is in a language I don't understand, once you hear it, as you know, like 10, 15, 20 times, and you start to, the melodies and some of the lyrics, you just phonetically, you start singing the songs and knowing the melodies and stuff. And then if you can ask what the songs are about and why people connect with it so much, then it's just really fun to me to go. It's a beautiful thing to get to go play and become a part of that and get a little insight into that culture and stuff. You guys have done a lot of this. You've been around touring for years and stuff, and the folks that tour that can hang with that stuff and dig that stuff, like, yeah, I'm stoked to go for 5 months and get immersed in another culture. And then there's people that might be more like, I miss home, and I want to, and that makes it.
I don't eat fish. That's a bad one that you've got.
Yeah, John Button did it.
That's right.
Yeah, he's vegan. And you know how positive he is.
Yes.
You'll never hear a complaint out of it. He finds all the vegan restaurants, even in a city like Tokyo, and makes it work, you know. And that's what I mean. Kind of,
he's had a kind of a lifetime of learning to deal with that kind of stuff, right? And he's gotten more strict, right, as he's gotten.
Yeah, he's strict vegan, and he and it's a great thing to note, actually, that he's such a fun guy on tour, and that he never complains about. That, you know, if he's having a hard time trying to find some good food, you'll never know it. He will not put that on anyone else or make them feel, you know, if he's having a bad day because he hasn't been able to find it. It's just, he doesn't, you know, it's his decision he's made. You know, that great thing where he's just such a fun guy to have on tour, and that makes, you know, him an easy person to refer if somebody's looking for a bass player or something, because it's like, you trust me, just get this guy, he's going to do a great job, and he's so much fun, he'll become everybody's best friend on tour. Right.
Wouldn't you say that's such a big part of it, right?
Like more than the music almost.
It kind of is, right? Yeah.
I think it's like 60%.
Yeah,
well, somebody could be a great musician and you would never recommend them. It's such a drag.
Yeah.
Such a drag, yeah. Because, I mean, you're living together as a family for X period, whether it's a couple of days or a week or 5 months or whatever it is, and you got to get along, especially when you're on a bus or something, or traveling on early morning flights, and you're all in line at the airport and you didn't get enough sleep, and it's like, if anybody's a drag, that's when it all comes out. Right. And if somebody like Button, he'll just be cracking you up in those situations, just making you laugh, and so it's not hard after a while to see the qualities in people that make them rise to the. I always say, like, the playing is a given. You have to be able to play.
Right.
You know, that's just, let's just get that out of the way. You got to be good. You got to be able to learn the songs. Okay, we got that out of the way. Now, how do you get gigs and how do you keep them and stuff?
Right.
You know, how you be the kind of person that somebody else would refer for a gig. Like you said, nobody's going to refer a great player if they know they're a drag. For me, honestly, no two gigs are the same. Like, whether it's in the U.S. or whether it's in, Japan or France, there are some, like, sort of blanket differences. But for me, I always tell people, don't expect any tour to be like the last one you did. The travel, the way you get paid, like the frequency that you get paid, per diem. It's like every one is a new one to take as an individual example, and if you can go into it with that in mind, then it sort of alleviates that, like, oh, I was sort of expecting it would be like, you just roll with it.
So you moved here in 1990, right?
Yeah, I attended MI.
What do you think you got out of MI that you still use today, or like how did it prepare you? That's
a great question, because a lot of people think of, music school as like, you're going to, the academics, learning scales and learning things like that. For me, it was actually, I was pretty young when I went there. I was 19 and I hadn't gigged out a lot yet and stuff, so I had plenty to learn. And I got some real world stuff out of MI, almost like, street gigging experience that I felt like was kind of a crash course. I had the benefit of having a great private instructor there, because once a week you would take a private lesson with somebody that would make sure you're on track with the curriculum and all that stuff. And he really was terrific, and sort of bestowed on me some great little bits of wisdom. So I remember in particular one thing was doing a live performance workshop there, which is kind of like they try and simulate a club jam, where you'll go in and it'll be like, next Tuesday at 2 p.m. the song is going to be The Ocean by Led Zeppelin or whatever. So learn that, and you'll go in there and it'll be drummers, bass players, guitar players, everybody. You sign up on a sheet, they call your name, you get up on stage, and you play The Ocean with whoever, you don't know who you're going to get to play with. So that can go a number of different ways, right? Had a bunch of music school students, and there were some brutal times, I can remember. And there would be a guitar instructor in there, a bass instructor, a drum instructor, a vocal instructor watching the performance, and then they would let afterwards, kind of critique you, give you, or give you, hey, that was great, or wow. One time I remember doing a Zeppelin song, and Steve Bailey, bass player, was in there and said, well, the Led Zeppelin police are outside waiting to take you away in the paddy wagon, and it was bad. I do remember Nick Nolan, my private instructor there, being in the class and seeing me play one day, and I got up and played some song, and it went well, it was cool, but at my lesson that week, when I saw him like a day or two later, he said, I was watching you play the other day, and he said, you were good, and technically, you played everything great, but he said, I want to tell you a story. I remember doing these things when I was going to, because he also attended MI, and he said, I got up and did one once, and I really learned the song, got all the notes and everything, and I knew all the, everything note for note, and I did it, and he said, everybody was kind of politely applauding afterwards, and then a guy got up right after me and kind of stumbled on the stage, and he was kind of very rock and roll, and he sort of plugged his guitar into the bass amp, and somebody said, no, dummy, over there, oh, okay. And then he just played, and he went for it, and he said he probably played at 70% as accurate as I did, but he was so entertaining, just his demeanor and everything, and it's and he said, you have to remember that when you get up, that you're there to perform, and it's entertainment, it's rock and roll, it's like you're a rock guitar player, that's what you do. So just 10% less worrying about make sure I've got the, and put a little bit more into, just let it go. And that kind of stuff was amazing. I always remember that I picked that up from, and I've struggled with maybe that, if I'm to be honest, my whole career, where it's don't be so, in the big mix out there in the crowd, in the wash coming through the PA and everything, if you, flub up something or whatever, it doesn't, just, rock and roll, let it go,
Right.
It's cool. People are there to see a show.
Yeah.
And I learned that from him really that day, I feel like. So that was a cool.
It's kind of the opposite
anecdote.
of what someone would think from music school.
That's right.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it was really, it's always down to the individuals. It was that, you didn't have to tell me that. Mm-hmm. The thing that I got out of MI was really a lot of those situations. They do a lot of this open counseling thing where, it's a room that you can just go into, and from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. or something, there'll be Scott Henderson or something sitting in there, and there'll be 2 guitar amps, and 4 or 5 students can file in there and come and go as you see fit. You could play with them, you could not, you could just watch. And it was in those moments that having somebody like Henderson, or some of these terrific players that would, when they sit in as a teacher at MI, and spending time with those people, and little anecdotes like that, like Nick telling me these little things, that's what I really remember from it, picking up, and it comes down to the personalities, is my point, I guess, more than the curriculum. And you could graduate from MI and get through the school and maybe come out the other end not any better than you were as a player going in, maybe a little bit, but it's the taking advantage of getting to be around all these really great players, asking them the right questions, and just soaking up that kind of real world knowledge. That's where you really learn stuff, I find.
Your time with Chris Cornell and how that came about and what that was like.
So I met Chris in 2007. I got a call, actually it was an email, to go audition for the gig. It came in at about midnight or 12:30 p.m. one night. I was at a studio, actually, at what is now Sphere. It was Linda Perry's studio, and I was doing a session actually with Courtney Love, I remember. I get this email, and it's if you want to audition for Chris Cornell, be at Center Staging tomorrow at noon, and here's the 5 songs. And it was midnight already, and I'm how am I going to learn 5 songs it's 11 and a half hours from now, and how am I going to do that? But I got out of there at about 1 or 1:30 a.m., and I went home, and I was just I gotta get this gig. And I just pulled out my pedal board and my amp and plugged in, and I started, I had to get the right sounds for songs like a Stone, the whammy solo and stuff, and tremolo, in the intro and stuff. So I got all that going, and I learned maybe 2 or 3 of the songs that night, and I went to bed at about 3:30 in the morning or something, and woke up. I set my alarm for 7:30, so slept a few hours, got up, kept working, and just got it together as best I could. And then I went down there and did the audition. And when I pulled in the parking lot, there's all these great guitar players there. I could see everybody under the sun is there. And I was like, oh God, why don't I just turn around and go home? That was my first, instinct. But
what's
I went
the vibe in the parking lot when you see all those guys that Is everyone friendly?
Yeah, but it's a hey man, what's going on? But everybody's
makes me cringe. Just we've all been there, but it's a horrible. For me, I mean, it's not comfortable. It's awkward. It's
a little awkward, but then you're all in it together.
Yeah, right.
It's like, well, let's go which actually ends up being the kind of nice resolution to the story, actually, because I did the audition and then I got a call back to go back the next day, which was a good sign. Went back and did that. I felt like it went well. That was when I really first spoke to Chris. I felt like it was that second day, and he called me over and he said, hey, so is this something you think you'd be interested in doing? Because I think you're really good. I think you'd be good at it. And I said, you're one of the greatest rock singers of all time. And I would be so happy to play with you. If you want me here, I'm here for you. And he just kind of laughed. Oh, okay, great to know, And then I didn't hear from them for a while. So 5-6 days went by, and I thought, I don't know if it's going to work out. I was kind of trying to put it out in my mind. I was at the movies, I remember, and I got a call, and it was, the fellow that was organizing the audition. He said, well, he wants you to come back tomorrow, and you're going to come back in and play with Yogi Lonich, another great LA guitar player, so come on down tomorrow. And so I thought, well, okay, that's a good sign. In that spirit of like, okay, we're all in this together. And I called Yogi actually on the phone. I said, dude, why don't we work out all the parts right now on the phone, and we'll kind of like, you tell me what you want to play on that song, and maybe I'll take this on this song. We'll split it all up, and then we'll go in there as a team. And that way we can go in when we hit these songs. It'll be we've already done a little bit of sort of pre-production, and then we can attack this. I was just like, let's go get this gig, man, together, because I knew he wanted 2 guitar players in the band.
That's so great.
So
very smart.
We did it,
yeah.
And and it was a good. He said, I guess he commented after a couple tunes to the fellow that was organizing the whole thing. He said, it's like these guys have already rehearsed together, and that was it. We were in. We got the gig that day. We got the call, which was like a great day for me, because I've played with a lot of great people and I've loved all the tours I've done. But playing with Chris Cornell, I'm a rock and roll guitar player. Those songs, it's just like every night in my email after getting the gig, I would get 3 songs. Okay, learn these ones for tomorrow. Learn these ones for tomorrow, because we were in an intense period of rehearsing to get ready for the first run, then first tour, and it would be Pretty Noose and Black Hole Sun and Say Hello to Heaven. And these songs would show up in your email. You'd be like, I can't believe I get to play these songs with this guy. Like, it's just like, this is the best for me. So it was just a magical period for me. So then we took off that year for about 7 months, I think, on the road after that. We started in March or April, and I was out till December, just kind of going, South America, Europe 2 or 3 times, all over the States. And it was fantastic. And we were, more than any other thing I've ever done, it was like a band. In a in a sideman situation.
It felt like that when I saw you guys, for sure.
Yeah,
like you guys were a team for sure.
Yeah, we hung like a band, we fought like a band, we had fun like a band, like all that kind of stuff for like the next 3 years. It was a really great period. Lots of travel and some ups and downs and stuff like that. But it was just playing with him was he was a magical guy. Really great friend, and just you had to kind of pinch yourself like, oh yeah, like I'd forget sometimes that. And then you're on stage and you hear him sing and you're like, oh yeah, it's him, like you make friends with some of these people or something, and then you got to remember like, oh man, like that is some world-class action going on there right now. I got to rise to the occasion, So
after that gig, you have the Don Henley gig.
So I met Don in 2000. Initially went down and auditioned for Don when he was doing the Inside Job album and tour. Came out in 2000, and I was really young. I mean, I was around, I guess, 20. I can't do math, but I was 27, 28 years old at that point. I got a call from my friend Frank Symes, who was at the time, he was Don's guitar player and musical director, and he said, Don's getting a whole new band for the tour. I'm the only one that's kind of staying, and so do you want to come down and audition? And you can bring some guys with you if you want, like get a bass player and a drummer and keyboard player if you can, and you come in and I'll be the other guitar player. I said, okay, and I was like, oh my god, I'd never done anything like that up to that point. Here I am in my 20s. And I called my friends Dave Salinas, Jurgen Carlson, who now plays in Government Mule, and Will Hollis, who's keyboard player. And we all got together and rehearsed a couple times. It was a long audition. It was like 10 songs, I think, that he gave us. And it was all the, Sunset Grill and The Heart of the Matter and The Innocents and, Dirty Laundry, all these great songs. So I worked hard for like a month on the tunes, just shedded them, and then went in with those guys, did a couple rehearsals, and then we went in and played. And I remember going to that audition, and the band that had played before was Brett Tuggle on keys and the Bissonette brothers, bass and drums. And I was like, I remember seeing these guys play with David Lee Roth when I was a little kid. What am I doing in here? What am I even here for when these guys were here? It was that feeling again. But you got to put that stuff to the side and just do the best you can. So we played, and we'd really done our homework. And I always remember, Brett had these big racks of keyboards, racks, and he's great. And everybody had, these huge racks and things. And Will brought in his little keyboard rack that was like this tall with whatever his sampler was in there and stuff, and his keyboard. And long story short, he's the one that ended up getting the gig. Will Hollis got that.
Yeah, Will did it forever, right? Does he still do it?
Still doing it.
Yeah.
So, and he does the Eagles now as well. Right. So, I always say you owe me sushi because I got you. Like, he was worried too. He was a young guy, and he went in there and he knew his rig. He knew it didn't matter that he didn't have as much stuff or whatever. Brett's a fantastic keyboard player. Yeah. Those guys are amazing musicians. But Will was able to go in there as a young guy with the gear he had, and somehow what he did was what Don wanted at that point, and that was good for me to see. That at least one of our group went in there, and I did well. I got a call back to go back the next week, and I went back a week later and played again. And I remember at some point Don's kind of right-hand man, Tony Tavey, came up to me and said, Don wants you to stay and play with the next group of players that are coming in. And I thought, I think maybe I got this gig. But so I played, and it went well and everything. He called me again a couple weeks later. I went back for yet a third, kind of like Chris actually. It was like a third audition, and I got a letter from him. He's a classy guy, Don Henley. He's a great, you know him. But he sent me a letter and he said, I've chosen another guitar player for my summer tour, which was Peter Stroud. He ended up getting the gig, but he said, you were my next choice and you did a terrific job, and maybe we can work together in the future. And I was like, I was let down, but it was, I knew Peter was a fantastic guitarist, and was like, he picked the right guy. I'm more green, and at the time he was the right guy, absolutely. So I thought I'm going to take that. Like, a
great thing for him to send that letter, though. That would make so many people feel so much differently about their experience, and
right.
I think so. Yeah.
Like to get a letter in the mail that was signed by him that he had obviously dictated, and it made me feel like I can hang. Like if I can go in this room and hang and get a call back or get a third call back and then this great letter, I'm on the right track, I think, So, and it was a tough, grueling audition period, but I learned a lot from it too. I took a lot away from it. So 9 years later, 2009, Will called me and goes, hey, so Frank's leaving because he was playing with Roger Daltrey. You want to come back in and audition again? So here's the guy that I, hooked up with his audition originally. Now he's the MD, and he calls me to come auditioning. We all just laughed, and I was like, absolutely. So I worked my ass off on the tunes again. Went in there, and Don came in. He goes, hey Pete, what's going on? I haven't seen him for 9 years, and so by this time I'm mid to late 30s, I guess. And it was similar. I did an audition, then did a callback, and he offered me the gig. So then it was a nice button on the end of the whole thing. I sewed it up and got to do that gig for 6 years. And he's a demanding guy. He wants things to be. He just really has high standards, is all it is. He always treated me fairly and with respect, and really I had a lot of fun. As long as you did your job and made him. Part of our job is to make these guys feel confident up there. Like, they've got nerves and worries like anybody, and they want to get up there and do. He's got a lot riding on the whole thing, and it's his voice and his iconic songs. So if you can go up there and make him feel like, hey, everything's okay. I felt like that was the biggest part of my job, beyond playing the notes and being a good person and everything, but giving him like 3 songs in, if he'd look over you give him a smile and a nod or whatever, and walk to the front of the stage, play something confidently, solo or whatever, and then walk back when the time comes, and he's like, this is okay, everything's going good, this gig's going to be good, and that's part of our job.
That's such a powerful thing to think of, because I think of that sometimes at the TV show. I think this show is called Jimmy Kimmel Live. Like, your name is up there. Like, in Don's case, these guys, they have the shirts, they bought the tickets whenever they bought them. Yeah. It's your name and you're up front, and how nice to think that someone's got that, these guys have your back. And I think musicians forget about that.
Every night. How do they do that? Like those late night. I mean, Jimmy, it's like that gig is just, how do you not say the wrong thing? Or if you are having an off day or you're not feeling quite well, how do you
or if the crowd's not as good as it was the night before, in touring case, like if one city's colder than they want to know that their people are behind them, and like I think that look and seeing that you're in this, like you're not checked out and that you've got their back.
I want to know how you got into the YouTube thing.
I had started the channel. It was a number of guitar lessons that I put up, but one was on how to play the song Paranoid Android. One was on like Dust in the Wind. And, you know, it was a few like basic acoustic guitar lessons, and I'd made them for a friend. It was actually for Chris. He'd asked me how to play like finger picking patterns, and he picked some really interesting songs. How do you play Paranoid Android? And I was like, I don't know, I've never, you know. So I'd say I'll learn it, and then we'll get together and I'll show it to you. And that never happened. We could never find a time. So I just said, you know, I've got this iMac. It's got a webcam in it. Why don't I just film myself and I'll email you a video file, break it down, and. So I did that, and he loved that. So I sent him like a Dust in the Wind, Blackbird, you know, a few video lessons, and Paranoid Android. And eventually I thought, you know, 6 months later, I had these videos. I thought, I've got a YouTube channel. Maybe somebody else will get something out of these. I'll just put them up. So I did. So it was really Chris asking me to show him a few finger picking patterns on guitar, some different cool things to play on acoustic. Now, the other thing I did at the time was a How to Play Eruption guitar lesson by Van Halen, which I thought, I don't know why I thought, you know, maybe that somebody will get something out of this, but I got into breaking that down note for note, and I didn't know how to do like any transcription software or anything, so I thought I've just got to explain every note. Well, there's a lot of notes in Eruptions, so it turned
like an hour-long video.
Well, it turned into a 5-part video series because you could only do 15-minute videos at the beginning of YouTube. So it's parts 1 through 5, and I put those up, and so this was an interesting thing. What happened was I was in Lisbon, Portugal on the last full tour I did with Chris Cornell. It was 2009. I put up that video a year earlier, 5 videos a year earlier from that series. And a guy came up to me on the street in Lisbon. He poked me in the chest and he goes, "You taught me how to play Eruption."
Wow.
And that kind of happens all the time now, you know, where people say, "Oh, I saw the thing you're doing on YouTube," or whatever. But that had never happened and here I am halfway around the world in Portugal, and I thought, oh man, I was so knocked out by that. That was the first time anybody had ever recognized me from YouTube, not from a gig that I'd done with someone else. It was a thing that I'd done in my own little place with nobody else telling me what to do, you know, that I just created on my own. And then I had this vehicle to reach this dude in Lisbon, Portugal. And that just light bulb went off, and it was huge. So the other thing that happened around the same period of time was there's a guitar amplifier. You can't see it's off camera, but it's right over there in the corner with a lamp sitting on it. It was one of the first Sir Badger amps ever made. I think they came out in 2007. So they'd given me a great artist deal on this guitar amp, and it was a company that I just was becoming familiar with at that point. I just met those guys, and so they gave me this great amp, and I paid for it. I paid an artist price for it, you know. But I thought I want to thank them for that. And I've got a little PreSonus recording interface at this point, a couple mics, and I've been making some simple YouTube videos. And I thought maybe I'll just demonstrate this amplifier, because I thought, you know, it's a company that is kind of a boutique thing. They're not in every Guitar Center. And what happens if somebody wants to buy this piece of gear and they're in you know, Des Moines, Iowa, and there's no Sir dealer or something? Yeah. So I thought maybe I can show how it sounds, and I'll demonstrate it as best I can. I'll just play some simple, you know, I'll play Rebel Rebel and some ZZ Top and some simple rock riffs through the amp and kind of show all the controls. So I did that video, and about a month or two after I did it and put it out, they came to me and said, "We just really want to thank you for the video. We think that it's got a lot to do with selling out the whole first run of the amps." Wow. Like dealers are talking about it and saying, like, you know, guys are coming in and saying, "Oh, I heard this great amp on YouTube," you know. And I went, oh, like that's a cool thing too. So at that point, it was really in the infancy of, you know, this whole sort of online content driving things, you know. It sort of is, I feel like it's the new print media, where people still buy magazines and look at online magazines. I'm a writer for Premier Guitar, and I still do things for them, but they're combining it with videos. And, you know, in their online articles, they've got videos that are always, you know, it's a big part of it. And I feel like it's just kind of moved that way, because why buy an ad in a magazine for, you know, whatever it is, $2,500, $5,000 for a quarter page or whatever it costs in a magazine, when you can get a YouTube video produced, it lives on your webpage, it's there forever, and people can actually hear and see what the thing does. So it was it occurred to me when I did that video and they told me that it had great results, that there was a sort of a future in it. So then I just kept making these videos for pedals and guitars and amplifiers, and it just grew and grew and grew. Well, the one thing that I've learned, and advice I can offer to folks out there that want to do YouTube is think carefully about what your thing is, because there's already a bunch of people doing what I do, for instance. But you want to find your own niche, and you want that, having said that word niche, you want to have the widest reach that you possibly can. And I picked a fairly narrow niche: guitar gear, equipment, demonstrations, things like that. I've met some YouTube people recently that are just, blowing my mind. One of them is Rick Beato. He's got an incredible channel where he's, an educator, and he does these great videos on, what makes this song great, where he's breaking down the whole track, and he's very excited about it, and he's very knowledgeable. So he'll talk about the, when the bass goes to the B right before the chorus, it just has all this impact because it never did that at any other point in the verse or whatever.
What song is that? The bass goes to the B. Do you remember?
I don't, but
curious.
But one that comes to mind would be something like Back in Black, where the bass only changes.
You're absolutely right. Those moments are crucial to songs being great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Where it's like, I just remember breaking down songs like that. The first one I ever watched was for a Pearl Jam song, and it was a song off of 10, their big breakthrough, album. And I remember, I was like, I don't even know this song really. Like, I've never really paid attention, but he's making me pay attention to it. And he's calling it what makes this song great. It's like, well, he's going to turn me on to great songs that I maybe don't even know about. Anyway, he's got such a wide reach, because if you're a keyboard player or a producer or a vocalist or even just a layperson, a listener, you can watch his videos.
Yeah, right.
Wide reach.
Yeah.
So he came up with a great sort of format that is not too niche. So I'm trying to figure that out still. I'm doing a new series called So You Want to Be a Pro Musician, and it's a little bit like what we're doing here today, where I'm talking about anecdotes and things like that. Things that I think younger players might find useful, or even older players might find useful if they want some career help or advice, that kind of thing. Trying to reach other players beyond just sort of guitar pedal freaks and stuff. I'm still going to do all that. The other guy that I'll just quickly relate a quick story here that I met that blew my mind was Leo from Frog Leap Studios. So he lives in fjords of Norway. He makes these great videos where he's basically doing covers that are many times it's pop songs. Lady Gaga or Hello by Adele was his big one, where he did a metal style cover of Hello that I think has 45 million views on YouTube now. He's a bona fide independent music artist that just came up with a cool thing, making he's great at video editing. He's a funny guy. He plays tons of instruments. He produces great tracks. Once a week he's making a great, funny, awesome cover video, and he's a whole package. And like I say, he's in the fjords of Norway, and he's an independent music artist basically that's highly successful. I mean, doing really, really well on multiple different platforms. So he's got a wide reach. So that would be something that I would say, consider it carefully before you start. I called my channel SINASL1, which meant Stranger in a Strange Land, because I didn't think about it when I started my YouTube. What should I name it when you're getting your URL or whatever? I just did some stupid acronym, and it's like, no, it should have been, Pete Thorn Guitar or something, So think about the name, think about what it is you want to accomplish, and how can you reach kind of the most, the widest range of folks, and try and do something different. Try and do something that you haven't seen before, or at least a different twist on things that you've seen before. That's your own personal take on, people want to see something that they can't get anywhere else. They don't want to see, somebody doing the same thing that I'm doing in my format. So,
what's your angle on the information age for a young musician?
Man, I mean, it's just a given now, isn't it? But I remember Geddy Lee saying kind of early on, like 2003 or 4, I remember reading some interview where he was talking about the internet, and he said it best. He said, it's everything you need and it's nothing you need. And I can't sum it up any better than that, where it's just like, just turn it off and just have some fun, go outside, enjoy your instrument, play with no distractions.
Right.
And yet, there's all this great stuff that you can learn and you can absorb, and it's just all about, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, when I look at the iPhone thing now, the screen time where it pops up, like you spend however much time this week, it blows my mind how much I'm on there. I can't believe the amount of hours that I spend. We talked a little bit earlier about, like, it's sort of in the spirit of it's everything you need and it's nothing you need. I feel like when Tattoo You came out, or when we were getting started playing, there was this great big machine that used to handle things like, promotion and touring, and there was a massive music business, and you just kind of had to be a great player and do some great writing, and hopefully somebody else would come along and help you and discover you. And you know, I spent so many, you know, hours, days, weeks, months with bands in LA trying to get record deals, you know, in the studio, to recording, doing the best demos we could, and then doing showcases where you jump around at the Viper Room on stage and at 2 in the afternoon, you know, in front of a bunch of guys that were standing there with their arms folded.
That paints it exactly perfectly. That's exactly right.
Yeah, like I hope they like us, you know, and it was like, God, like I don't miss that, you know, and so that has just kind of gone, like it's just not there anymore. And we were saying earlier, you know, you kind of have to develop your own thing now. You don't wait for somebody else to tell you what to do or to tell you you're great. If you don't have, you know, 50,000 followers or whatever on Instagram and your YouTube happening, nobody's interested in you.
Right.
People just don't want to, you know, record labels and whatever that means anymore. But they just don't. They're only interested in you if you've developed yourself. And getting back to my story about being in Portugal and the guy poking me in the chest and saying, "You taught me eruption." Halfway around the world, I meet some guy that's seen a YouTube video that I did. It dawned on me, I can do this on my own, and I don't need anybody else to tell me I'm not good enough or to tell me I need to be better or to approve of what I'm doing. I just have to put in the time and the work and do it myself. So it's a great thing that you can do that. It's sort of like the bad news is you have to do everything yourself.
Yeah, right.
You have to do it all yourself these days. You put a bunch of time at, you know, you're your own record label, your own promotion department, you're your own content creator. You have to do all that in addition to being a great player. So that's the bad news. You have to do it all yourself. The good news is you can do it all yourself. You don't need anybody else to tell you you're not good enough or whatever. That's just not a thing anymore. You can do it on your own and reach all these people. All the examples, Rick Beato, he always says, you know, he's a white-haired older gentleman in his early 50s, and he says, I can't believe, you know, that I found this platform where people want to hear what I've got to say. You know, he puts in a lot of time and effort. Creating something original and somehow breaking through. And if I can't really tell you for me what that has been. It's just, I also had the benefit of getting in kind of early on YouTube. I mean, as it gets more crowded every day, you get, you know, it's more and more competition. But the thing I also see, and I don't know if you I don't know if you guys have kids and stuff, but sometimes if you hang out with little kids and stuff and they get an Instagram account and they'll take a picture or something or do something and then they put it up, is this thing where every now and then you see them go, my picture didn't get any likes, you know, and it's like and it's heartbreaking because like, oh dude, don't worry about that, you know, like it's just when you see a kid that's 8 or 9 and is supposed to be having fun and they're worried about being approved of by their peers, that's painful to see. And I think we all have to.
Or 39.
Yeah, well, it's true.
It's so true.
It's friggin'
You're
true.
almost even sadder.
It's friggin' true. You know,
this is the word. This is where I think what we've learned today, or what we're looking at, is that this age is a blessing and its own thorn and its own side, right? At the same time, and just like all generations, all periods, that we think about getting signed in 1978, and that was a huge deal. But if your first album didn't sell, you're dropped, and you maybe dropped out of the music. You didn't have a possibility to create your own, to put yourself out there. And
I find a lot of my friends that are trying to get into YouTube and Instagram and other things, and they if they're making videos and stuff, they tend to be a little more stiff than I actually know them to be, like a little more reserved. They're trying to make good content and make it very, just be precise and astute with the things they're saying and be like, and it's like, man, you're a goofball looking person, like let some of that out, you know, the human thing. Maybe that's where the late night hosts have the, like Jimmy, it's like just letting that thing roll and just being funny and being, like a personality. You got to put personality into it. And, I mean, you're great at that, though. God, you guys are doing that. Comes out in the videos you're making, which is why I think it'll.
We don't know how not to be stupid, so
that's the problem.
We have that on our side.
Blessing and curse.
There's so much serious shit in the world these days. It's like good to put some. Like some comedy out there, and if you can break up people's day with a little bit of, and some, if you're helping them out with some knowledge and making them laugh with some humor. I mean,
well, the best times on the road or in the studio are those moments in between. Well, you create something great, and then the release of, the tomato soup falling or whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's also part of the.
The funny part about the tomato soup thing, I was in North Hollywood at the Fat Dog, and I was eating, and it's this bar, and everybody's sitting in there, and everybody was on their phones, and all around you, like and they're all doing their things, and nobody. And here's a guy like sitting there with tomato soup literally all over himself, like it was all over, and I was laughing at myself because I'm like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a napkin. And I'm like trying to get the waitress's attention, and I'm just sitting there with soup, and nobody noticed because everybody was in this world. I'm like, you guys all missed out on what an idiot I am.
It's some good comedy.
Yeah, some good shit going on over here.
Do you have any other questions?
No, that was really great.
Oh, hello, Sage's Sound Advice. Another episode's come and gone, and we hope you enjoyed all of it and you paid attention because there will be a test. Lady C, there won't be a test. We hope you enjoyed it and stick around. Many more episodes to come with many exciting guests. We hope you love Sage and Sound Advice as much as we do. Okay, back to the doobies.